What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to hop on because I just got through reading an article of how India's Minister of External Affairs, Subramaniam Jaishankar, is visiting Moscow, and he has a pretty insightful quote that he says. He talks of geopolitics, how it connects India and Russia, and it, as a result of so, basically condemns Russia and India to a positive trajectory. Basically, Russia and India's relations are geopolitically determined to continue to improve over time because of the necessity they have for each other. Of course, India is a massive demographic market, the largest, the most populous country in the world. And Russia is literally the largest country in the world in terms of landmass. And embedded in so is the resources that come with being such. So India is heavily reliant. And if you look at a lot of the changing of trade since the sanctions went on Russia due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, India really hasn't abided in spite of strong pressures from the West. But the West can only do so much with India. So that's why this relationship with India and Russia is so important because what we're seeing right now, especially with the West using up its political capital to make sense of this mess that's going on in the Middle East between Hamas and Israel, is that the West can only finger wag so much because they're starting to get really bogged down. They were already bogged down with Russia and Ukraine. Then they started to get bogged down in this Taiwan, China, South China Sea situation. And then, of course, the Philippines is going to be a recurring issue with China there as America tries to protect that relationship and maintain and not lose ground in the South Pacific as well. And now you have India. Now, on the surface, one would assume India will be a great ally of the West due to its being a daughter of England. And that's wrong phrasing. India is older than England. So this is why I want to harp back on that. Despite the fact that India speaks English, inherits a parliamentary system, the world's largest democracy, India is an Asian country through and through. Historically, culturally, India's civilization is one of the earliest, the Indus Valley civilization is one of the earliest civilizations noted on the planet. India is ancient. And whenever you have a civilization that comes with being ancient, you kind of have a legacy, a strong stability, and almost an immovability, a lack of desire for change. And you will see this a lot in Asian cultures and how Asian nations run things. They're not real big on dynamics and big drastic change. Whereas the West, especially the Atlantic nations, primarily UK, and speaking of the US, they they live in change. They live in dynamism because to them, that's the only way to stay ahead of the game. They prize winning over tradition. They'll throw a culture away if the culture is no longer winning. And that's the difference between Asia mindset and the Western mindset, in my opinion. So when you have the West, which pretty much wants to hamstring Russia, at the end of the Cold War, as the West is aggregating former Soviet states and adding them into the NATO alliance, entwining them into EU alliances, common currency. As the West is doing this, the East is more, or Asia is a lot more concerned with maintaining their structural integrity, the continuity of their nation, and keeping it in one piece. And a lot of this dynamism, it can almost borderline on anarchy from the outside looking in to the Asian thought. So India is a habitual neutral country. And I have a SWAT video out there where I express some of the reason I think India is so closely aligned with being non-aligned. But the point of the matter is India does not like dynamic change. And secondly, India is a human capital place, not a industrial country. India wins on its human capital. India wins because its people at the table are the smartest and hardworking. This is the Indian success model. You'll see exports come out of India, such as refining, whether that's cutting diamonds. Is India a major diamond source in the world? No. But they're one of the world, believe as much as 90% of the world's diamond travels through Gujarat as far as cutting. It's one of the world's diamond cutting centers. India, does India produce oil? Not really. But India has some of the largest oil refineries in the world. India is pivotal to global oil trade because of its human capital, value added services to the oil industry. So, India, because they lack the industrial resources, but they are drowned in human resources, they have always competed on their labor. As such, they need access to resources. And voila, you have this oasis of resources, the world's largest country. I mean, with 100 million people in Russia, that's the size of like a Indian province. We have a country of 1.4 billion, which is, let's say, a loose number as well. I think that number is far higher than that. And don't forget, India is still growing. It's one of two places in the world still growing in population is sub-Saharan Africa and sub-Saharan Africa and in South Asia. So Indian population is still growing despite being the largest population in the world. So when you see this dynamic, the West is going to have its hands full because they don't want to isolate India. So it's going to be interesting in how the U.S. try to manage this relationship with this English-speaking country with common strains to the British Empire, that legacy to the British Empire, and try to use these commonalities to build a bridge, as well as that the relationship, as I said, being another democratic country, because India has been bailing Russia out. India has been importing the energy needs that it desperately needs from Russia. So it's going to be hard for the West to crush Russia when you have a market in India as big as all of Europe still taking on Russian goods. So we're going to continue to monitor this. And another country that I think hasn't really stood out in this alliance yet, but I think still there's room on the table is going to be Vietnam. I think Russia, Vietnam, and India is a natural alliance. And I think over time, that relationship between those three, because they kind of operate on periphery of each other's spheres of influence, and they have a lot of complementary skill set and complementary goals in the world. I think we'll see that relationship get stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's my thoughts. Please comment below. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.